Hees introduceert Hees Open Studio, uw belangrijkste update over de wereld van werk. Neem deel aan het gesprek live op YouTube. Abonneer nu. Kijk en luister wanneer het u uitkomt. Mis het niet. Tot dan. Alright, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Hees Open Studio. We are live from Amsterdam and from Paris. We are here for your most important update about the world of work. And today we zoom into the life sciences sector. A thriving sector, a very interesting sector. We are live, which means it's interactive. Log in to YouTube to ask your questions. We will respond, and whenever we have the time to respond to your question, we will definitely do so. Luckily, we received a bunch of questions already prior to the show. I will ask them. Log into YouTube to ask the question in chat, and otherwise just sit down. We might have a little bit of a technical problem, which is also only video based. Put on some headphones and listen to the webinar. You'll be informed anyway. My name is Wouter van Ewijk, situated in Amsterdam, and my special guest is expert Paul Strouts. Paul, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Good. So you've been with Hees for a while. Maybe you can give a brief introduction of your history and how you got to Hees.
Yeah. So my history is, I guess, reasonably simple. I've been working in the recruitment staffing sector really since 1998. I came into the pharmaceutical life sciences sector in 2002 when I was a part owner of a business called James Harvard, which specialised within the kind of pharmaceutical sector, focusing primarily within regulatory affairs, QA, medical, etc., etc. That business was then sold to Hees in February 2007. And since then, really, I've been with the group, kind of working and focusing on the life sciences sector and building that out globally. So, yeah, that's a brief plotted history of me.
A brief, but a very, very exciting one, I suppose. Yeah, let's just dive into the very broad and very exciting sector you've got there with life sciences. Maybe it's good, before we look into the future and before we dive into all the different developments, maybe it's good to give a brief overview of what the life sciences industry has experienced over the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there's been a reasonably large evolution in the sector over the last 5, 10, 15 years, really. I think if you go back maybe 15 years, I think it's pretty fair to say that it was very much kind of a product-centric industry, which is driven around the drugs and, the businesses and pharma companies were, I guess, in a way, assuming what would be good for patients, I guess. But now we've moved a lot further forward since then. It's very much a patient-centric type industry. There's a huge drive now towards kind of the devices sector, which like the Apple Watch, for example, is now deemed as a medical device for different reasons, and it's very much kind of around kind of the patient, really, what the patient wants, what they need, self-medication, etc., etc. So, we're very much in a world now of kind of personalised medicine. And I think, there's still huge investment, huge M&A within the life sciences sector. Maybe not as much free-flowing investment at this current moment in time, due to external factors like Brexit in the UK would be a prime example, and changes of the kind of presidency in the US would be another one. But yeah, overall the sector is really buoyant, and yes, moved away from more kind of product to patient, and that's very much the primary focus now. Everyone in life sciences is very much kind of patient centric now. That's kind of the whole
Good, good. For me as an outsider, I'm definitely not into. I'm interested, but I'm not into the life sciences industry. It does also concern food production, right?
Yeah, I think there's if you go back maybe 15, 20 years, I don't think food played such an important part in the sector, but I think there's definitely businesses now that I've met recently that would that are seeing a very, very clear association between, I guess, health, food, drugs, etc., etc. So yeah, food and nutrition is very much an important sector within our life sciences world, and so much so, I just got back from Singapore, and food and nutrition is our largest sector there.
Yeah.
So definitely an area.
But let's you say that food and medicine is highly important in people's lives.
100%, 100%, and they are like, to a certain degree, brother and sister in the sector that we have here. Depending on what you eat, will depend on how healthy you are to a certain degree. And there's been lots of trials and reports going around in regards to what food you eat and the attachment to maybe some of these oncology diseases. So yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, let's go into what we've seen currently. What are the main developments that you see occur in the sector, or changes you see occur?
I think there's a number of changes really within the sector more recently. I think there's on top of shifting from more product to patient, I think you're looking at huge shifts now in the war for talent to a certain degree. So I think talent strategies are most definitely changing. I know we don't want to talk too much about the pure recruitment sector, but the world of staffing has changed from the PSL-driven businesses to more RPO, MSP, statement of work pieces. And I think outside of that, you're also looking at huge changes really within kind of regulations in the industry. There's a lot more kind of stringent regulations now around the kind of regulatory and manufacturing sectors. We've seen that very recently in Russia in particular. And you're also seeing a huge change and huge shift towards the IT technology sector as well. We spoke briefly about the Apple Watch.
Yeah, you mentioned the Apple Watch, yeah.
Yeah, they're saying now the Apple Watch in the not too distant future will be able to highlight when you're about to have a stroke or a heart attack, give you a 10-minute warning. So fascinating information coming out of that company at the moment. But yeah, I think IT and technology around the analytics sector, big data, this is very much driving the information that we can kind of gather from trials and how useful that can be. So yeah, a couple of 2 or 3 huge changes over the more recent periods.
Yeah, to me it's a fantastic fusion. If you think about the laboratory work opposite of the medical devices, those worlds merging, it's amazing. The future we are heading, and obviously also the sector. I've done a couple of interviews to talk a bit and learn a little bit more. And a lot of people talk about the different startups we see occur within the life sciences industry. What kind of startups do we see, and what is the opportunity, or maybe even the threat for the bigger established corporations in life sciences?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a threat, to be honest. There's no threat in the industry. I think if you look at, there's always a range of startups. We're seeing startups in the biologics world, for example, many startups in that sector. But if you look at the history of pharmaceuticals, in particular large pharmaceuticals, they have consistently had a reliance on, I guess, universities and the academic side of it, but also smaller biotech. So I think the opportunity for startups in this sector is still extremely large. I think the investment in these businesses is large, and I think the larger pharma companies do rely on these startups for information, for intelligence, and for breakthroughs, really, in regards to genetic codes and everything else. So I think the opportunity is huge. I think you've seen many different businesses over the years. I remember meeting Gilead back in the early 2000s, when you would classify them as a reasonably small startup. They're now the seventh largest pharmaceutical company in the world. So, yeah, I think the opportunity is there. We see many different types of startups, but many of them do get acquired very quickly before they get to a certain size.
Yeah. It's the essence of innovation, basically, and also the industry thrives on innovation. What can you say about regulatory affairs? It got to be way more important. What are the influences of the growth of regulatory affairs?
Yeah, I think if you go back to when I started James Harbour business that was to become Hays Life Sciences, we initially started that business within regulatory affairs. That was the core area that we started with. You go to any country in the world, so some are more commercial, so they really focus on maybe selling the drug, like Malaysia would be a good example of that. Some only really manufacture the drug. But one thing is for sure, in the majority of countries that I am responsible for, regulatory is one area that kind of goes through all of those territories. There's always a regulatory function within pretty much all of those countries. So I think regulatory affairs is probably one of the top three most important areas in the sector right now. I think it's going through lots of different regulation changes at the moment. But if I was somebody maybe coming out of university with a degree in medicine or a medical degree, I think regulatory affairs would be a most definite an area I would consider due to its growth and the fact that it's probably not going to go anywhere for the foreseeable future. We need to regulate devices, we need to regulate drugs, and that will only increase as we require more and more data on the quality of these things.
Okay. Paul, allow me just to fire away with a couple of questions that we received. It's a fun factor, obviously it's an international industry. Yes, we are an international company, 33 countries and counting. Spain, USA, Sweden, and obviously our home country, the Netherlands. I've got a fun question from Spain, which is related to the international job experience. There are many professionals that want to hear how to continue their career within life sciences in another country. What's your advice?
I think that really depends on what area they're in. So, for example, there's different regulations for clinical in different parts of the world. So sometimes it isn't as easy to maybe move a CRA from Russia to the US, for example, because of the different regulations and different kind of areas of expertise that they've been focusing on and trials that they've been focusing on. But I think for me, what we are seeing in the life sciences sector more recently is we are seeing in the life sciences area more than any a more transient kind of workforce. And I think my advice to any employee within the industry looking to kind of relocate, Hays do have a fabulous office location map. So if you were in Spain or Sweden or the Netherlands or the UK or France, and you were considering open opportunities in other countries, especially if you spoke those languages, then my advice would be to get in contact with that local office, who will then probably come to me or the central point in London, and we will put you onto someone in that local country that will advise you on what you need to do, how your resume should look, any other, I guess, barriers that may need to be overcome. And so create more of a soft landing type of process. But it's very much something that's growing. We very much recommend that you do that, and we're for that kind of process. But there is definitely certain steps that you need to take to ensure that it's done properly, and that when you do get to another country, you have an enjoyable experience rather than one that sometimes can be quite difficult.
Do you also think that is the aspect that makes Hays stand out eventually, about being globally and locally active?
Yeah, I think so. I think one thing about Hays, which is very, very good, we are the global #1 life sciences recruiter. I think that's proven. If you look at Europe in particular, the recent report I saw. we own just under 20% market share. So we are definitely one of the bigger players, and I think I think that is definitely one of the unique selling points of Hays Life Sciences. We can help most people in most countries if they wanted to relocate. So if there was, a USP for us, that would be one of probably the top three. The capability to help employees in one country relocate to another one, and there's a very simple process to do that, and that's make your desires known within your home country, and then we can make sure that is pushed onto the country you're looking to relocate to.
Yeah. Taking the different areas we are in worldwide, I'm building a bridge towards a Dutch question, because obviously someone wants to know what your vision is on the Dutch life sciences market. What's the competitive advantage, a disadvantage maybe, and what's the opportunity?
I think the opportunity in general, there's a huge opportunity for Hays Life Sciences. I think if you look at similar countries, maybe like Belgium, France, Germany, for example, they are huge countries for Hays Life Sciences, and large in the contracting world. So I think the opportunity for the Netherlands life sciences business is most definitely in the contracting sector. There's definitely huge opportunity there. I don't really see any real negatives at this moment in time.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if we look at the sector, so not just the recruitment opportunities we have, but what maybe talk about the pharma, the biopharma, and the medical devices, etc. So the vision on the market.
Yeah, I think the economy, or the global economy, is probably in a bit of a holding pattern at the moment. So that is stunting growth anywhere in the world. The Netherlands will be no different to that. But we most definitely have a strong pharmaceutical sector in the Netherlands. I was there a few months ago with the team, and went on site at Johnson & Johnson there. So there's definitely a thriving pharmaceutical sector. I think it's a growing medical device sector in the Netherlands. I don't think it's as big in the Netherlands as maybe in some other countries, but definitely an opportunity, as is the food and nutrition sector. I think if you look at the investment that's gone into the Netherlands from the Dutch government recently, I think they put in 50 million or something, just purely into life sciences, which was matched by the kind of academies there and the pharmaceutical companies. So there's huge investment going into that sector at the moment. That is currently happening. So I think there's growth in pharmaceuticals. I think there's growth in devices, and I think there's most definitely growth in biotech. Lots of biotech companies coming up in the Netherlands, and I think for me there's a real opportunity, as I say, probably in that kind of contracting world more than anything for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. What is the biggest difference for the Netherlands compared to our surrounding countries such as Germany and France?
That's a good question, really. I think if you look at France, they have a very similar model from a contracting piece, an employed model. So very, very similar. I think if you look at France, you look at Germany, that they would have larger pharmaceutical industries than the Netherlands would have. They have larger populations. They have obviously larger companies that are here. But that would probably be a distinct difference. But I do think that if you look at Belgium, for example, which is close by, they have probably a smaller pharma sector than the Netherlands. If not smaller, it's a very similar size, but they have been quite clever in diversifying. So they've moved into maybe the chemical world, they've moved to the food and nutrition world, and also some of the kind of devices and scientific sectors as well. So I think with the Netherlands, I think we need to focus on the larger areas, but also be quite nimble in regards to considering maybe some of these newer areas like food and nutrition, like medical devices, and moving forward, companies that focus more on the genetics, genomics, and personalised medicine sectors.
Yeah, great. A question more sector-wide, so international. It's not about Holland. We're broadcasting from Holland, so there was a little bit of an excuse to speak about the Dutch a bit more. We've seen a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the pharmacy. Do you think it's a certain trend, or can you name just some specific reasons why it's actually taking place?
No, to be fair, I don't. It's not a trend. It's not a trend. It's been happening for many years. Some of the larger M&A activity goes back to the early 2000s. I think if you look at GSK, for example, you look at Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. I think Johnson & Johnson probably have 50 different companies that they keep separate, but they've acquired over the years. So I don't think it's a trend in any capacity. I think what we are seeing is what I've seen for many years. I think we're seeing a market that is consolidating to a certain degree. I think we are seeing the larger pharmaceutical companies are becoming larger. We've seen it recently with the Pfizer Allergan scenario. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's something that's been going on in the industry for a long time. I don't think it's anything new. I just think a lot of these larger pharmaceutical companies, particularly Pfizer, J&J, AstraZeneca, that they're very keen to improve their pipelines. And to do that, they need to acquire companies that have them. And that's always been the way.
Yeah. What is the effect on the workforce taking the acquisitions and mergers, startups, etc.?
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends what area of the sector you work in. I think if you are GSK and you acquire a large company that's got maybe a manufacturing plant in the same town as what you have one, would you need two manufacturing plants doing the same thing? You probably wouldn't. So I think there's always, unfortunately, going to be casualties when it comes to these mergers. But at the same token, there's also plenty of opportunity. I think if you look at the majority of these mergers that occur, we've seen one recently with Shire and Baxalta. Now, Shire are closing down certain offices that aren't productive for them, but they're opening up other ones and they're increasing workforces in other places. So I think it depends really what part of the cycle you're in. But overall, I think it offers more opportunity sometimes as these companies look to grow these partners in further.
Sure. So what is the advice, taking the opportunities, what is the advice you have for hiring managers or HR managers within the sector?
My advice is quite simple. I think if you look at the frustrations within the sector over the years, I think there's always been frustrations around speed, around kind of clarification, and probably frustrations maybe around certain hiring managers being quite, I guess, quite clear in what they want. But I think we're in a world now where if I was to send a resume, I'll be looking for a hiring manager giving feedback within 72 hours, for example. That gives good service, that speeds things up. And I think also as well, if you were to look at the frustrations overall, I think that I went to the USA recently and I met up with a company there they're a pharma company considering candidates from the medical devices sector. So I think we're now in a world, because there's a huge war for talent and there's a lack of talent, particularly in Asia, I think we are now looking at, you need to be a bit more open-minded. You maybe need to consider candidates from maybe other sectors, maybe food and nutrition, maybe devices, etc. So that's happening.
Yeah, I hear a little opener towards your best advice towards professionals within the sector. What is the top 3 of things you really would advise them currently?
Top 3, I think the top 3 would be, I think, speed. I do think that. I think speed. If you send a resume, you wait 2 weeks for feedback, that candidate normally has gone. So I think speed would be one. I think the second one for me would probably be probably to ensure that you're working with a compliant partner.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're working in the contracting sector. I think there's a lot of companies that may or may not be working as compliant as they need to be. Luckily for us, Hays are extremely compliant partner, so we have no concerns there. I think the third one would probably be communication. I think we've spoken about globalization for so many years now. I think communication is absolutely critical when you're talking to partners, particularly when you talk about hiring as well. And there seems to be sometimes a lack of that, or maybe not forthcoming communication. So if that improved not only in your local territories but internationally as well, I think we have a much better business and a much better industry.
Okay. And last but very much not least, what about the candidates? What is you're the professional within the sector? What is the career advice you want to give them?
My career advice is quite simple. I think you should embrace probably the digital and the social media side of the industry. I think as a recruitment company, we do that. We're a number one partner globally with LinkedIn, for example. So I think as a candidate, you need to absolutely embrace that move in where we are as a sector now. And the digital and the social media is definitely one of those. Read would be another piece of advice that I would have. Particularly if you're looking for a new role, read about the company, find out about the share price, understand a bit more about their product pipeline. We see so many interviews where people aren't prepared properly. And I think the last one would be, quite simply, my advice would be, again, it would be to extend your networks. It's very easy now to extend your networks with different people within your country and internationally, and I would do that, and I would meet people, online and face to face when you can, and I'd extend your network for when maybe you're looking for a new opportunity.
Perfect. What makes the people that work within the life sciences sector so passionate? What is it with these people? Because I've got a different view on other sectors, and this is passion. What is it?
Yeah, listen. I think life sciences. Other sectors are maybe financially driven to a certain degree. And I don't think it's like that in life sciences. I think life sciences candidates and employees of businesses that work in these sectors. It's not about the finance. It's about the trial that they're working on. It's about the better good. It's about can they find the cure, the next cure for cancer? Can they find the cure for HIV? So I think doing the right thing and enjoying working on that trial with a really intellectual, driven team alongside them. That's probably the most important thing, and that's where the passion comes from. I have myself. I like working in life sciences because I think that we're building teams for companies that potentially could cure or wipe out some of these diseases that we see globally now.
Paul, you might be surprised, but we've been having a nice, fun chat for half an hour already.
Time flies, huh?
That's it. Time flies always. In between, I wheeled in the questions. I've neglected to mention the names of the countries, but we definitely got the answers. We've seen a nice couple of viewers online. This video will stay online. Thank you so much. Maybe you want to have a last moment of pitching the industry, why everybody should work in the industry.
Yeah, listen. I think it's one of those niche boutique industries. It has great people working in it, really intelligent people. It's at the cutting edge of where we're at as a nation, really, globally. And it's doing great things. And it's at the cutting edge with the devices. We see drones now carrying blood. You see obviously devices like the Apple Watch. So it's an exciting industry. It's full of great people who are very intelligent and who are trying to do good things within the world right now. So yeah, it's definitely a great sector to work and be part of.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy Paris while you're there. Have a good trip back on the train. I'm gonna thank you for your cooperation and allow me to ask you again, because we definitely need to do a follow-up about the life sciences sector. So can we make an appointment?
Yeah, why not? I'm more than happy to give it my time again. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully everyone else has. So yeah, why not? Absolutely.
Perfect. I'm gonna thank the viewers. I'm gonna advise everybody to look us up on LinkedIn, follow us on, find us as Hayes. You'll get updates about career advice, but definitely also be able to stay up to date and in the know, as they say, about the life sciences sector. Tune in for the next episode of Hayes Open Studio. I'll thank you all very much. Paul, thanks again for your time.
Pleasure.
Cheers. Hees introduceert Hees Open Studio, uw belangrijkste update over de wereld van werk. Neem deel aan het gesprek live op YouTube. Abonneer nu. Kijk en luister wanneer het u uitkomt. Mis het niet. Tot dan. Hees introduceert Hees Open Studio, uw belangrijkste update over de wereld van werk. Neem deel aan het gesprek live op YouTube.